This is probably an oversimplification, but life is full of get-tos and have-tos. Some things are always get-tos. I get to stand up here and preach the good news. Some things are always have-tos. I have to come up with an idea for a newsletter article. Some things move back and forth depending on the day. I might start out the day thinking, I get to go to this event in the evening. And after a long day and a couple of emergencies and having to deal with some other things that are have-tos that might become, I have to go to this event in the evening. Get-tos and have-tos. When I was very little, going to church on a Sunday morning was a get-to. I got to see friends that I didn't see during the rest of the week. I got to spend time in Sunday school learning little lessons. I got to play. I got to sing as loudly as I wanted to, and nobody could complain about that. I got to do a lot of things. And then, as I got older, going to church on a Sunday morning started to slide more towards the have-to end of the spectrum. I have to put on uncomfortable clothes that I don't like to wear at all. I have to get up early on a Sunday morning when I, as a growing boy, need, and this is backed up by science, at least 14 hours of sleep a day. I have to sit still and be quiet and pay attention while someone rambles on about stuff I don't understand. I have to go through confirmation and stand up and make the promises. After confirmation, let's be honest, my parents kind of gave up. I did too for a while. I got to do special music during the summers. I got to participate some in the Christmas program. I had to sometimes go to church other times. But my life was starting to fill up with more and more get-tos and more have-tos. Well, I spent my time on those. I get to be in the school musical, which means I have to go to rehearsals. I get to be part of the literary magazine, which means I have to show up for meetings. I have to do algebra homework, which I'm not going to do anyway. I can show you my high school transcripts. I don't quite know when going to church on a Sunday morning shifted back from a have-to to a get-to. I know I tell the story of sometime after college, I started going back to church, and I'm not quite sure it was yet a get-to. It wasn't a have-to, it was a, I'll try this out. And in seminary, of course, I didn't actually have to go to chapel, and I didn't actually have to go to church on a Sunday morning, but I got to go to chapel and go to church on Sunday mornings and experience all of these different things, all of these different ways of worshiping, things that were solid old traditions and things that were new and experimental. I got to get into the excitement of it. And now, more often than not, going to church on a Sunday morning is a get-to. Which isn't to say that it's never a have to. But more often than not, it's a get to. I'm telling you this a little bit because being part of a church, unfortunately, has some have-tos that come along with it. There's a business side to having a church. And some of us are in the position of, I have to go to this meeting. I have to help figure out the budgets. I have to ask some questions about what the future of our church looks like. And those can be hard. And I remember being in one of those conversations a while ago, and I don't remember which one it was, and I don't remember who said this thing, but I remember being in one of those conversations, and somebody said, the challenge is we're all really burnt out. We keep having these conversations, we keep doing this work, it keeps being hard, and we all have other things in our lives, other get-tos and other have-tos, and it's just really hard to be a part of all of these have-tos. And I remember looking at the person and thinking, and not saying, but thinking, you only ever come to the have-tos. I haven't seen you in worship on a Sunday morning in I don't know how long. I don't see you at First Wednesdays when we're just having fun. I don't see you even on Fifth Sundays when things are different. I only ever see you at the have-tos. And here is a reality of life. If all you do is the have-tos, no matter what those have-tos are, you're going to get burnt out. A life cannot be lived on the have-to end of the spectrum. You need to have some get-tos. So we've been in this sermon series on spiritual practices. And today we're on this spending time with the Spirit, by which I mean being engaged and involved in worship. And I know that I am a little bit preaching to the choir here. So as you hear this, maybe think about how you can take this to some other folks. But I think too many of us still walk around with that kind of attitude that I had when I was in middle school and high school and college, that worship, church on a Sunday morning, was a have-to. I have to go to this thing. But maybe I can't make it this week. Which would be okay because it's a have-to, and I'm full of have-tos. I have more than enough have-tos. I'm going to have to give up a have-to, and right there on Sunday morning is a get-to. I get to sleep in. I get to have breakfast with my family. I get to go see a friend somewhere. I get to watch the Olympics or whatever other sport is on at that time of year. I get to hang out with my kids and watch them succeed at something. I get to do this thing, so this is the have-to that I'm going to give up. No worship for me this morning. And it actually gets worse because so many of us have created a theology around the idea of worship as a have-to. I have seen people say, I've seen people write, it is weird that we have to worship God. Is God so insecure that God needs us to show up someplace on a Sunday morning and tell God how great God is? I mean, wouldn't any God worth their salt be secure in their own identity as the creator and sustainer and redeemer of all of creation? Why do we have to do this thing? And the thing is, we don't. Worship is not a have to. It has never been a have to. It will never be a have to. Worship, whether it's on a Sunday morning or any other time, whether it's in a church sanctuary or any other place, worship is a get to. Because it is not this thing that we are doing in order to make God love us and admit us into a reign of love after we die. It is a thing that we do because God has loved us, and because God has brought a reign of love to the earth, and because God has given us the opportunity to step in to that reign of love. Worship is not a please. It is a thank you. Worship is not a have to. It is a get to. And let's face it, that changes the nature of worship altogether. That changes how we feel about worship. It is a different thing if we approach it as a get to. How can I sing praise to God for all that God has done to me? It changes what we do in worship. Maybe we don't have to listen to somebody ramble on about things we don't understand. It changes everything about how we approach worship, the church, our relationship with God, our very being. It asks us to live not under a sense of obligation, but with a spirit of gratitude. We worship because the God who is love created a world and gave it to us as a gift. And even after we broke it, came into the world as one of us and started putting it back together again. Started filling the cracks in with love. Started making what is broken beautiful in its breakage. Started making us who are broken beautiful in our brokenness. Made us whole again, made us human again, and freed us from the powers of sin and death and everything that makes life less, and offered us new and abundant life. And what can we do with that other than say thank you? Other than offer praise? Other than sing glory? Other than live a life full of gratitude for all of the gifts that God has given us? There's a way to live a life full of gratitude for a gift. There are gifts that you take and you put on a shelf. There are gifts that you take and put in a drawer. There are gifts that you use. The way to show gratitude for a cookbook is to make the recipes. The way to show gratitude for a bicycle is to go on a bike ride. The way to show gratitude for love is to love. Worship, this time together, is practice for worship, a life of gratitude lived in love. Here we greet each other so that we can greet others. Here we pray so that we can pray for and with others. Here we sing so that people can hear our voices and our words. Here, sometimes, we gather at a table so that we can know how to gather at tables. So when we think about worship, let's not think of it as a have to, but a get to. We get to do this so we can do the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and live lives in gratitude, live lives filled with love until the whole world is full of love. And one last thing on that. If church on a Sunday morning is feeling like a have to, use your imagination and think about what it might look like as a get to. And then talk to me, or talk to worship and fellowship, and let's see how we can make it more of a get to for everyone. See how we can make it feel like more of a get to for everyone until everyone can look and say, I get to do that. Out of thanksgiving for all that God has given me, in practice for living a life of gratitude rooted in love, in hopes of God's reign of love filling the world, and everyone getting to be part of it.